In awarding a degree, posthumous doctorate to Henry Nxumalo, the history of investigative journalism in South Africa owes much of its resilience to one person considered by many to be the father of that brand of journalism in this country. While major exposés are published each week, bringing to light nefarious activities of the mighty and powerful in state and private sectors, most of it is done in the comfort of air-conditioned offices through data analytics and interviews. Not for Henry Nxumalo, however. He lived the histories he wrote about in the Drum magazine in 1950s. Whether it was in the hiring of prisoners to potato farmers in Bethel and their abuse through beatings and even murder, leading to corpses being buried in the fields to serve as fertilizer, or Bas Neyman in Costa, Northwest Province, who was known to beat and kill his recalcitrant workers, or terrible prison conditions and practices such as Tauza, where black men were made to parade naked every morning and evening for their behinds to be inspected for contraband stuff. Nxumalo lived all those stories. He got himself hired in Bethel, Mpumalanga in 1952, and his expose of the conditions of the farm, on the farms led to the now famous national potato boycott. He escaped with barely minutes to spare from the farm and arrived at the railway station just in time for the Johannesburg train, and made it back to the office with just enough time to catch the deadline for the monthly magazine. Nxumalo's arrest and incarceration at the Johannesburg fort, now known as the Constitutional Hill, and the seat of our current apex court of the land, is a story in itself. He had spent 2 weeks walking the city streets each night without permit, hoping to be arrested, but it was not to be. He resorted to getting drunk and walking past a police station singing. Even then, he didn't go to jail. While he was eventually arrested, the picture was taken from a nearby roof by his photographer, which led to an outcry that saw the government pass a new law. Not to protect prisoners, though, but to outlaw the taking and usage of pictures of prisons and prisoners. The magazine dubbed him Mr. Drum, and these stories would make the cover page when bold announcements such as Mr. Drum goes to jail were made. However, he was more than an investigative journalist. Nxumalo's influence on Drum magazine's content and style was immense. As the first black journalist employed in the magazine, he provided a connection to the black urban life that Drum magazine would chronicle. According to Anthony Sampson, the first editor, he was instrumental too in key decisions about the content that would come to define the magazine. He suggested the investigations to give the magazine substance. He approached the American writer Langston Hughes to be the judge in his first fiction competition the magazine ran. This brought a number of black writers into Drum. Nxumalo was born in 1917 at Mvunchili village near Margate in KwaZulu-Natal. Was the firstborn child of Lazarus and Josephine Nxumalo. He attended a missionary school, and his interest in journalism started while still at school, when he submitted a number of publications, such as Post in Johannesburg, which published them. The Post eventually offered him a job which he took up, but did not stay long. He was intent on exploring the world, and World War II saw him enlisting and being sent abroad, during which time he managed to even visit London, where he made contact with a number of well-known journalists, and other intellectuals. Returning home after the war, the media landscape was virtually barren for the kind of journalism Nxumalo wanted to practice. This was to change when Drum came on the scene. Nxumalo became the first black journalist and its assistant editor. According to South Africa History Online, Drum became the antithesis of the entire South African press at the time and was eventually read all over the continent. It provided a racy and irreverent blend of humor, sentiment, fiction, sport, scandal, weighty commentaries on continental affairs by renowned thinkers, and devastating expose of labor issues and political and systemic injustice. Nxumalo was directly or indirectly responsible for much of the magazine's sparkling content. He persuaded the intelligentsia to contribute, directed the efforts of the staff members and himself, who wrote many of the featured articles, often literally risking his life through investigative reports, which he believed were desperately needed in Africa. A number of Drum writers were to become household names in South Africa, but they would all agree that the magazine's most brilliant star was Nxumalo himself, whose nickname, as mentioned previously, was Mr. Drum. Jürgen Schadenberg, who took many pictures for Nxumalo expose, said of Nxumalo in the 2012 interview with the Committee to Protect Journalists, quote, "White Afrikaners were consistently uneasy when Nxumalo introduced himself as a journalist. They couldn't handle it." He interviewed a white official. Henry was asking a question. When he talked to Henry, he used a voice with authority and superiority. If the official talked to me, he had a specific type of voice because I'm white. He had to change his voice all the time. He started stuttering, end quote. Nxumalo also worked with Ruth First at New Age, a leftist publication that chronicled the socio-economic conditions of black people under apartheid, and wrote a regular column for the Pittsburgh Courier, a rare feat for a black writer in South Africa at the time. Describing him as a very good journalist, very courageous, Schadenberg bemoaned the effect that Nxumalo's murder at the age of 40 whilst investigating a backyard abortion racket in Sophiatown had not led to justice for his killers. Instead, even as his brand of investigations waned, Drum eventually folded and was bought by the National Party supporting Naspers, which turned it into a celebrity rag that bears no relations to the legacy of Nxumalo. Nxumalo was posthumously honored with the Order of Ikhamanga in silver for excellence in journalism by the then President Thabo Mbeki in 2007. A street has been named after him in the cultural precinct of Newtown, Johannesburg. This was done in recognition for the role he played in South African journalism. Mr. Vice-Chancellor, it is only fitting that an institution such as the University of the Witwatersrand, Johannesburg, should honor Henry Nxumalo and his work by bestowing on him a posthumous doctorate.